I don't understand the proclivity of some people when you talk about the past and talk about people like former Prime Minister Michael Manley, that they think that we should just swallow what they want us to swallow without looking at the facts. And those people who are alive should just ignore all the negatives and just bow down and kneel down to this man. Well, it seems like some of you really have your head up your ass. Not all of you, but some of you seem like you have your head up your asses, because that's not going to happen. The facts are the facts. The greatest period of economic growth in Jamaica, post-independence, was after independence, 1962 to 1972, when the PMP came to power under Michael Manley's Better Must Come. Between 1962, after independence, and 1972, Jamaica recorded 5.6 to 8% economic growth. By the time 1972 came around, Jamaica's economic growth had jumped to 9%. Now you tell me which nation would not give an arm and a leg for 5.6 to 8, much less 9% economic growth now? No nation. You'd have to really, really search, and I have not done the research, so I'm going to be really honest. Is experiencing 9% or even 5.6 or 8% economic growth right now. Hasn't been happening much, if it has at all. So let's get that off the table. Facts. Mr. Manley made some serious errors. And the people who would want to shape Jamaica's future by ignoring Jamaica's past are not going to be allowed to do that, because here's what happened. Factually, Manley did not understand world politics. He did not understand geopolitics in the way that he should. He was a man of conviction, yes. He was a man who believed in what he believed in, but I don't think he ever contemplated consequence, and that has hurt Jamaica exponentially. When Manley decided to attach himself to Cuba, which was a satellite of the Soviet Union, against the United States imperial wishes, it made no sense. First thing we need to understand is that the Soviet Union had built a sphere of influence. The Soviet Union, Russia had built that sphere of influence, not by coming together with the states that were part of the Soviet Union. Most of those states hated Russia. Russia took them over by force. And so people were doing subsistence farming in these countries, right? And the proceeds of whatever they were making had to go to Central Russia towards the build-up. Couldn't continue. The military buildup couldn't continue. By 1980, Ronald Reagan came to power, and he could outspend the Soviet Union on military armament. So the Soviet Union was operating like a big brass monster standing on legs of clay. And so the Soviet Union collapsed. Nations started to break away. There's nothing the Russians could do about it. They broke away and they sought to align themselves with the West. Soviet Union collapsed. And pretty much all that was left around the Soviet Union was the nation of Belarus. You can look it up if you want. Don't puff your chest out. Look it up. Now, I am not going to sit here and argue that downward pressure from the United States did not happen through government agencies of the United States. It actually did happen. But leadership is not emotionalism. Leadership comes through understanding what you're working with, situational awareness, understanding that if you get into a fight with this great power, there's no way you're going to win. The elements that were upholding Jamaica's economy were basically bauxite, agriculture, and tourism. And literally every single one of those things had to go through the United States or with the United States acquiescence. How are you going to win if they tell your tourists not to come? How are you going to win if weapons are coming into the country and violence is at peak? How are you going to win if they stop buying your bauxite? How are you going to win if they stop buying your farm produce? You see how that works? Situational awareness. And so, because he lacked that situational awareness, this is not a question of whether he was good or bad, or he was a bad man or he was a good man. It was a question of the decisions he made that led to the consequences that our nation suffered. So we could do a line item and go through point by point the issues that happened under Michael Manley, the negative things that he did. I don't have time in this video for that. But I know that many of you are going to have a counter argument to this video, are going to talk about all the free things that you got. Because the period of freeness mentality, the period of depending on someone else, the period of believing that someone else owes you a living, also came in that period under Michael Manley. Now, Jamaica also continued. After Michael Manley left, Siaga served 8 years. And after Michael Manley came back, that period continued. That it was not on steroids as it was in the 70s. But that period came back. And when he stepped away under P.J. Patterson, the free fall continued. 22 and a half years PNP held power in Jamaica. 18 and a half unbroken. And what did Jamaica have to show for it? What did Jamaica have to show for it? Everywhere in Jamaica you go, it was despair. Zinc fence, rusty zinc fence. Despair. Every single other week there was another scandal exposed. The PNP had total power. Gang proliferation. That was it. Members of the PNP sitting front and center at the funerals of gangsters. The police, forget about the police and the military. No money was given to them for them to get up to speed to deal with the proliferation of the gangs, because that's the way the PNP government wanted it. And Jamaica was on its way to becoming another Haiti. But I find that is what a lot of you Jamaicans want. You want free for all. You want to be able to break laws and there's no consequence. That's the place you all want to live in. A place where funeral, the unaliving of your fellow Jamaicans, you're completely desensitized to it. And so you've built an entire cottage industry around that. Yeah? And so by the time Bruce Golding won a narrow victory, after all of that 18 and a half years, in fact, 22 and a half years, it was like Jamaica was, for all intents and purposes, like Haiti. And so the United States forced the Tivoli incursion in 2010. Bruce Golding, for his part, did not want to acquiesce with that demand, that lawful demand. And we all know what happened. Since 2010, during 2010, crime went down. And after that, pretty much on an upward trajectory, until even after Andrew Michael Holness came to power. He was forced to recognize that this was not sustainable. Nowadays, I see people on social media crying because they got traffic tickets while admitting to breaking the rules, breaking the law. They don't want to receive traffic tickets because they don't like accountability. It's insane, the mindset of some of you people. Complete insanity. So when we hear Master Mark talking about continuing Michael's legacy, I hope that most of you are listening, because some of the things I laid out, and this is just that was just scratching the surface. What I laid out is what awaits you. Yeah? Freeness. If somebody have 2 cows, he must split it and give one to somebody else because he is a capitalist, because he didn't earn it. He's rich, he's a capitalist, and he doesn't deserve the fruits of his labor or her labor. Yeah. That's what awaits. So make no mistake what Mark Golden wants. Mark Golden wants nothing to do with prosperity in our country. And I hate to say this, but it's true. Mark Golden is there as a plant to ensure that Jamaica continue to be a borrower nation to the rich lender nations. And even the scripture tells us that a borrower is a slave to the lender. That's what he wants for us. And he understands conceptually how to get that done. He understands it. He understands that when crime is allowed to proliferate, when gangs are allowed to metastasize, then we're going to suffer, because tourists is not going to come. Investment opportunities are not going to come. And so the economy nosedives into stagnation. That is what he wants. And that is why he's embracing Michael Manley's strategy. Michael Manley might not have wanted poverty. Michael Manley might not have wanted Jamaican people to be destitute. He had good intentions. He had some good intentions. But the actions that he took, many of the actions that he took, led to the consequences that were absolutely devastating to our economy and to our country and our people. 5 flights a day, taking over the entire private sector, nationalizing everything, chasing out the middle class, chasing out the few wealthy people that was living in the country, encouraging people to grab one of the 5 flights a day to Miami, all of those things. On and on and on, padding the JPS and the national airline with sycophants from the PNP, so they were forced to collapse, economically collapse. All of these things wrecked Jamaica's economy. And so those of you who lived through that and was socialized into that freeness mentality, you have no desire to go through the growing pains to get Jamaica to where it gets to, so your children can get a decent education. You have no desire for that. What you want is for government to take money from, tax the rich, or just simply take over their property, divest itself of the proceeds and hand out free money to crash program workers sitting on walls, crushing weed in your hand middle with Guinness under your arm, with your face twisted and getting with weapons inside your waistband or ratchet knives, so you can receive payment at the end of the week. Just line up at the local parliamentary offices and receive a check for doing nothing. How can you build a country that way? Government doesn't have money. It's the private sector that builds country, not government. If there's no money coming in, government cannot hire nurses, police officers, teachers, doctors. They can't. So there's no money. And when you have to borrow just to finance those elements of government, you keep borrowing and borrowing and you're not producing much of anything, then the gross domestic product pie gets smaller and smaller, because all of that you earn has to go to service debt, usually not even to pay on the principal, but to service interests. And so there's less and less and less money to go towards building roads, building hospitals, building police stations, building fire stations, or improving them. This is what Mark Golden wants for you. And many of you get on social media with your nonsense and your ignorance and trying to bully people into accepting your point of view, as if you think that everybody is stupid. The reality is, Mark Golden is not a leader of any caliber that anybody should want to lead. And here's the final thing I must say on that. If you look at the people he associates with and brings into his party, like Isaac Buchanan and others, you see the direction that the PNP is going. You see what the PNP really is about. It is not about the development of our country. It has nothing to do with improving your lives. It has everything to do with raw power, so that they can rip and run and use public funds to give to you lazy people who do not want to work, you people who are indoctrinated into believing that you have a God-given right to what someone else worked for. That is the way to destroy a nation. If you haven't yet, guys, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please do subscribe to this, The Deep Dive TV. Hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, leave us a like, and share the video in your WhatsApp or whatever group you are in. See you on the next one.